Hello everybody! I come to you from outside of my backyard because it's such a nice day today, but it's really bright, so if I'm extra squinty, that's why. Also, brought to you by our supporters, Coca-Cola. Alright, so we're doing biomes, and which is one of the 5 levels of classification for ecology. Remember, we had biosphere, biomes, ecosystem, community, population, species. And so we've been doing a lot with populations and the animals that go on within them. So we're going to go a little bit higher up to biomes. Now, if you remember, I said that I used to do this as one giant chapter as opposed to 2 smaller ones like we're doing this time. So in terms of notes wise, I'm going to make this a continuation of what we've been doing. So it's like, ecology part 2. So we're going to call this one 10-7. All right, here we go. So biomes, but a little bit of intro material before that. Okay, as you guys know, biomes are large collections of ecosystems that we have all over the world, and they're all similar in terms of temperature and climate and precipitation and animals and plants and things like that. Well, the reason why we have all these different biomes all over the world is because of the climate. So we need a little bit of pre-information as to what the difference between weather and climate is and how that affects. Try to figure out how to change the umbrella up there because it's really bright. Okay, so first of all, there is a difference between weather and climate. Weather is what you get when you wake up in the morning and go, what should I wear today? Oh, it's cloudy and rainy. I think I'll wear shorts and sandals. Yeah. So that's the weather. It's what happens day to day in terms of what the atmosphere is doing, what the barometer is doing, and where you're living, your place, your time. So that's weather, and it changes. So, February, the weather is usually cold and rainy. This year, it's kind of a little bit on the sunny side. And so the weather changes. But overall, there isn't a whole big change. If we look at the averages of all the weather put together, we get the climate. And that's this one here. Climate is the average year-to-year conditions of temperature and precipitation in a particular region. It's kind of like taking the averages of all the weather and putting it together, and we get that a climate. So where we live, we're used to hot, dry summers. Actually, falls are the hottest, more so than the summers are. Relatively cool. We don't get snow, that kind of stuff. So our climate is pretty decent compared to other places around the world. Now, what causes that particular temperature, climate, pressure, whatever, what causes that is a greenhouse effect. And you've probably heard this in the news as being a bad thing, but the greenhouse effect is actually a really good thing. The greenhouse effect is when you have gases in the atmosphere like carbon dioxide, methane, which is CH4, water vapor, H2O, and other atmospheric gases. What they do is they provide like a little blanket around the earth, and that blanket helps to trap heat. So if this is you, hi, that's you. Oh, missing a leg. If this is you, if you don't have a blanket on, all your body heat radiates outward. But if I put a blanket on you, then your body heat radiates and just becomes trapped between you and the blanket. So the same thing happens here with greenhouse effect, is that we have these gases that act as a blanket, and they help to trap Earth's heat that it radiates outward and keeps it kind of, just bouncing back and forth between the edge of the atmosphere and the surface of the Earth. And what that does is it helps to keep Earth in a livable range. Of course, there's some spots I wouldn't want to live, right about there or down there. A little bit too cold, but overall, Earth is inhabitable. If I go one planet out either way, closer to the sun or farther from the sun, it's too cold, too hot. You can't survive. It's just not possible. So thankfully, due to the greenhouse effect, it makes this Earth livable. But the only problem is we like a nice thin blanket around us. But we put so many gases into the atmosphere that my blanket actually becomes really thick. And that's like, in the summertime, you just want something light covering you. Well, what happens when you put a nice big old fat blanket on you in the middle of the summer? It's just too stinking hot. And so what happens is the more greenhouse gases we get, the thicker the blanket becomes, the warmer it becomes surrounding the Earth. And that's where we get the polar ice caps melting And it's February and all my flowers are blooming right now because it's so warm. They think it's springtime already. Well, no, it's still winter. Can't believe it. It's 80 degrees outside right now. But so the warmer temperatures are bad. And if we look at a graph over time of temperature, average temperature of the world versus time, it kind of goes, it has its ups and downs, but overall it's a general trend upwards. So, and that's due to completely because of carbon emissions. The carbon cycle has a huge effect on this one, but burning fossil fuels, all that stuff, it's very, very bad. Bit bad. Okay, another thing that causes us to have different biomes in the world, why are we not all the same, has to do with the latitude of the Earth. So as you guys remember way back from elementary school probably, you got the equator right here, and so that we call that 0 degrees. And then as the Earth curves, we have these lines that go up, and those are our latitude lines, and they go from 0 up to 90. This is 60, and then 90 would be the very top there. And so there's a bigger distance between 30 and 60 than 0 and 30 just because of the curve of the Earth, so they're a little bit more spread out. But what ends up happening is that because of where you live, we're about 33 degrees latitude, so we're just a tad above this line right here. Where you are in relation to the equator, so how far away you are from the equator, and also what time of year it is, whether here's the sun shining on you. Right here we're faced away from the sun, so this would be fall winter for us. But if we rotate this way and put the axis this way, well, then we would be in the summertime. So the fact that the Earth is tilted and that the angle that the sun hits the Earth is different in all these different locations, it has created 3 different zones. And these zones, 3 main climate zones, have the same types of biomes in them. So whatever biome we find over here, we could probably find over there. Whatever biome's over here, we could probably find over there. We are not going to find this biome up here due to the Earth's tilt and the latitude that you are found at. All right, so what are the zones? Well, here's a map behind here. Here's the equator right here at 0. And so that's our equator, and then we have the Tropic of Cancer. I always get these backwards. Hold on, let me look back. And Tropic of Cancer, yes. Tropic of Cancer is 30 degree up top. Tropic of Capricorn is the 30 degrees down below. But this middle zone, from 0 to 30 up and down, we refer to that as the tropical zone. Sorry, I went out of order here. The tropical zone. The tropical zone is around the equator. It receives direct sunlight pretty much all year long, just due to the fact that it's always almost at a 90 degree angle with the sun every time. And so it's obviously pretty toasty there. Here's the Sahara Desert, toasty. Mexico, toasty. The northern part of Australia, toasty. And so because it's in the tropic zone, that makes it hot. Now it could be hot and dry, it could also be hot and wet. So hot and dry, we think Sahara Desert. But South America, the northern part of South America, is hot and wet. So that's where we get all of our tropical forests. 80 degrees all year round, humidity 99%. So pretty sticky, we'll say there. Okay, then we have between 30 and 60 degrees, north and south. So down here to down there. So this zone and this zone, we call that the temperate zone. Sorry, I got an itchy eyeball. So sorry, I'm digging in my eye right now. So the temperate zone is between 30 and 60 degrees latitude, and it has a wide range of temperatures due to the fact that sometimes it's facing the sun and sometimes it's not facing the sun. So depending on where it's at in relation to the sun, the temperate zone can be really, really cold, or it can be really, really hot. Not as hot as down here, but it can still. We get pretty toasty, 120 degrees in Barstow. That's toasty enough. But we can also get negative 20 degrees up here near the Great Lakes. So the temperate zone is kind of in between. It's in between really cold and really hot, although it can have extremes in either direction. And then we have the polar zone right here, which is usually from 60, there we go, 60 degrees up and 60 degrees down. Now degrees I mean in terms of latitude, not temperature wise. So the polar zone is around the poles of the Earth where the sun strikes at very low angles. So these are areas you can see Alaska, northern Canada, Greenland, which is actually covered in ice, Iceland, which is really green, very strange, down here, all this freezing ice cold. Some of the coldest temperatures recorded on Earth can be found, actually I think it's like right around here. And so these really stinking cold temperatures make the polar zone pretty much uninhabitable by humans. You can have polar bears and walruses and things like that, but for humans, it's just too cold. It's really hard to survive there without, freezing to death or something. So the polar zone, sorry about the trains, there's a train track right across the street, so that's what the big loud noise is. So the polar zone then, and the sun. So the polar zones are, obviously very cold, not a lot of big plants, not a lot of big animals there. So it's kind of like the desert in terms of not a lot of variability in terms of plant and animal wildlife. All right, so there's our 3 zones. And in the zones, we're going to find a wide variety of biomes. And so the biomes, we kind of see follow this pattern of zonation. So here's a map showing all the different biomes around the world. And you can actually kind of draw a line right through, where all the different ones change. And that kind of coincides with those Tropic of Cancers, Tropic of Capricorns, and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting that the Earth is just made up of strips of temperatures, and then therefore different plant and animals grown in each one. So a biome is just a complex of terrestrial communities that covers a large area, and has very specific soil types, climate conditions, and very specific plants and animals. We're not going to see a giraffe cruising around in Arizona because that biome doesn't support giraffes. So everyone is very particular as to the types of plants and animals that you can find in there. So what we're going to do here is on the next set of notes, we're going to take a look at each individual one, and we're going to take a look at where they typically found, what are the major plants, animals, and abiotic factors that we can see in each one. All right, so this was, what did we say? 10-7 notes, and so continuation of ecology. All right, thanks guys, and I'll get going on the next one right away.